3-year-old girl forgotten on school bus was left alone in a garage for hours. Conrad Mitzi slammed for deplorable and unprecedented PAC snub. All this and more on Lovin Daily. Good evening and welcome to Lovin Daily. I'm Diacono, joined today by Yannick. And today is a really big day for all the cannabis users across Malta because the government has finally published details about its long-awaited cannabis reform bill, and they're probably better than most people expected because they propose the establishment of cannabis social clubs. Jan, what can you tell us about this new bill that Owen Bonici launched today?
So, as you said, this is highly anticipated reform seems to be finally underway. So, after presenting the legislation in Parliament on Monday this morning, Reforms Minister Owen Bonici had a press conference in which he revealed many of the details that are in this proposed law. So, the main highlights of the proposal are that the possession of up to 7 grams of cannabis will now be legal. So this means that anyone over the age of 18 who is carrying up to 7 grams of cannabis in public does not have to fear sort of being arrested, taken to court, anything of the sort. This would be completely legal. The second highlight is that users will be allowed to grow up to 4 plants at home. The requirement that this can't be within sight of any members of the public remains, though there is this green light for people to grow up to 4 plants. And there's also the introduction of cannabis social clubs or cannabis associations as they're being described in the legislation. So basically this means that groups of people can come together and can set up an association which will grow the cannabis to be distributed among the association's members. It's important to note that these associations cannot operate as for-profit associations, and there are a number of restrictions on sort of what the amount of cannabis they can hold. For example, they can only hold up to 500 grams of cannabis on site at any given time, and they can distribute up to 7 grams a day to their members. The law will also see the establishment of a new regulatory authority that will have the power to obviously monitor these social clubs, conduct inspections and request certain information from them. There's a number of proposals, and you can find all of them on Lovin Malta's website. So the reform has been welcomed by many smokers, especially people who believe that this day would never come, including the lobby group Relief, which described it as a bold reform in favor of human rights and one that makes Malta a leader in regional and international drug policy. The reform was also, I suppose, welcomed by opposition leader Bernard Grech, who essentially took credit for the reform by stating that the government had decided to introduce this aspect of the social clubs following comments he had passed a couple of weeks ago. But Greg actually told Lovin Malta that he believed that smokers should not be penalized and that there should be a legal way for them to buy weed. Otherwise, it's just feeding into the black market.
That's what I think about it. Well, to be honest, I'm pleasantly surprised because there was quite a lot of resistance to this white paper. It's a known fact that some NGOs and lobby groups in Malta are very adamantly against cannabis reform, and they were very, very vocal during the consultation period. So I was a bit concerned, more than a bit, that the government was going to water down the white paper to appease certain lobby groups. Not only has it not done that, but it went a step further and proposed social clubs, which really are, I think, a really positive way forward. So they exist already in countries like Spain, specifically in towns like Barcelona, and what it does is, like you said, they allow people to grow your weed on your behalf, and it is very important because growing weed is not easy. not everyone can do it, especially people with a very dedicated full-time job. So like just so there's putting a seed in a plant and letting it grow. It requires a lot of specific conditions, the right light, and the point of these social clubs is that you will allow other people to grow your weed for you, and that's a very positive thing. It also has a social atmosphere. It will also which means it would help reduce the taboo that smoking is something criminal and that's associated with the drug. Well, no, these would be just normal houses in the community. So very positive. Obviously, it's not done yet. It still needs to pass through an entire parliamentary debate and committee stages. So there might be more surprises yet to come. But yes, today is a very positive day for cannabis users across the country. On a more sad, shocking note, really, Lovin Malta published details of a case whereby a 3-year-old girl was left alone in her school bus for hours, and what happened was she was being driven to her after-school club, right?
Yeah.
And somehow, we don't know how, she was left behind in the van. Perhaps she was somehow no one noticed she was there, and she stayed there for hours. The van driver parked the van in the garage with this little girl there. He left, and when she woke up, she was there in the van in a dark garage. You can imagine how terrifying it was, and in fact she's been traumatized by it. We've spoken to her mother, Boyana, and just saying like, I need to know what happened. My child is traumatized. She doesn't want to go to school again. I can't say I blame her. It's not. I'm trying to put yourself in the minds of a 3-year-old girl. I think even an adult might be scared in those conditions, let alone such a young girl. The Education Minister has launched an investigation to find out exactly what happened, whether there was any kind of recklessness from the school bus company or anyone else on board, and yes, obviously there's a huge discussion going on at the moment.
Yeah, in fact, when discussing it this morning, we thought this was a kind of one-off case, quite a strange case. But as it turns out, it's actually quite a common occurrence. In fact, a number of parents have actually reached out to Lovin Malta saying that the same thing has happened to them in recent months. There's a lot of comments online also saying that this is quite a common occurrence. I mean, it seems that the Education Ministry is now going to be investigating the matter. So hopefully we'll have some more answers once that investigation is concluded. On to our next story. Former Minister Konrad Mizzi has been heavily criticized for his decision to boycott a sitting of Parliament's Public Accounts Committee that is investigating an Auditor General report into the Electoral gas deal. So the committee has been discussing this report for a while now. And it's heard from a number of players in the contract being awarded to Electro Gas. And today, the committee called on Konrad Mizzi, who was minister at the time and who saw the project through from its start to its end, to answer questions about the project that he was ultimately responsible for. It appears that Mizzi, after initially telling the committee secretary that he would be attending, this morning at the last second emailed saying that he wouldn't be attending because he cited this provision in the guidelines for the committee that states that MPs can choose not to testify if they want to, or if they didn't want to, rather. So the chair of the committee, Bebefena Kadami, pointed out that Mizzi's behavior was unprecedented, and he sort of ran through a list of former ministers, nationalist ministers who had all testified before the committee. He also pointed out that Owen Bonnici, Labour minister, had also testified before the committee, basically insisting that why he has a right not to go. At the end of the day, given his position as an MP, he owes it to Parliament, he owes it to his colleagues, MP colleagues, and he owes it to the nation to appear before the highest institution in the country and answer questions about something he was ultimately politically responsible for. So after this, there was a bit of an awkward back and forth about whether Mizzi was in fact the first MP not to attend. And then Nationalist MP Carola Aquilina recommended that the committee take a vote and issue a declaration saying that Mitzi's decision was deplorable, and also asking him to come back and to actually testify. Funnily enough, Labour agreed that Mitzi should be called upon to testify once again. However, they refused to condemn the act and describe it all as deplorable. In fact, it was a bit of an awkward sitting, which the Labour MPs didn't appear too sure about kind of what to do and how to vote. Ultimately, a vote...
They kicked him out, remember?
Yes,
right?
So a vote was taken. They decided that, yes, Mitzi definitely should be called up again and be made to answer questions, though there was no agreement on whether to describe his snub as deplorable.
So I'd just like to say something about his excuse for not attending. So his argument, which he posted to Facebook earlier this morning, said that the reason I'm not attending is because the PAC is partisan. There are opposition MPs there. The opposition MP chairs it, even though the opposition, interestingly, doesn't hold a majority of MPs. No, exactly. He forgot to mention that, and therefore I have no reason to be subjected to a partisan questioning. When for a project that I believe has done so much good, which is an absolutely absurd and ridiculous statement, because if you're so convinced that your project was for the good of the nation, are you saying that you can't stand questions from MPs who are voted by the general public at the end of the day? Let's not forget it. And what, you will only accept questions from people of your former party. You'll only accept it if people from the Labour Party are questioning you. Is that how you're saying you're only going to accept all questions if the police are questioning you, if lawyers are questioning you in court? That's it, really. You're not going to accept any more questions from the general public about the electric gas power station, even though you're so convinced that it's such a great deal that's helped the people. Why don't you explain to the people why it's so good? Why don't you answer questions and put people's lingering doubts to bed? It's been going on for so many years, and every time there's always an excuse. Face it, be brave and face the partisan. Any partisan, because you can be partisan back if you want, but to give an explanation to the nation. This is literally something that involves our national electricity system. That's no joke. It's of extreme national interest. It involves other countries as well, the nations of Azerbaijan and also huge other companies like Shell and Siemens. And full transparency is crucial, especially with the fact that some of the people involved, let's not forget, was Jorgen Fenech, who's been charged with the murder of Daphne Caruana Galizia. So yes, crazy decision by Konrad Mitzi, and I really hope that Labour MPs use their power, because it has to be them at the end of the day, use their power to force him to testify if needs be under order, because the nation deserves it. Moving on, the Metro Plan. Discussions on the Metro Plan the government presented over the weekend have picked up pace, and people are now understandably starting to scrutinise the 25 metro stations that have been proposed on the official website. And one of the stations is already starting to cause a bit of discussion is the one in Pembroke. And the reason being is that it has been proposed in the Park and Ride area, the area currently outside Luxor. And yet, it's not just the design, the render that the engineering firm has published on the official website doesn't just include a station. It includes a complete revamp of the area into a new urban zone or village with a high-rise tower as well. And there was a debate yesterday between Nationalist MP Tony Bedzina and Transport Minister Ian Borge, and Bedzina was bringing this up, saying, why doing the tower? Isn't this a station? Like, what is there something else going on over here? Ian Borge kept saying, I have nothing to do with this. All I did was I told the experts to do whatever they want, give them a blank slate, and if you want to ask questions to them. He was non-committal on it. He's saying, look, I'm not saying I'm in favour of it, I'm not saying I'm against it. This is just a study that the government commissioned from an internationally renowned firm into the possibility of a metro. Then I want the people to discuss, and they will take it from there. Now, this isn't really surprising because this is really like coming down to the crunch of what a metro actually means. So it's one thing to talk and dream about having a metro, and you're on the tube in London and say, oh yeah, I really wish to just have one in Malta. But it's another thing when you down to the nitty-gritty about where the stations are going to be, how long it's going to take, how much it's going to cost. 6.2 billion euro. That's more than Manchester City, Chelsea, Liverpool and Arsenal and Tottenham combined. I've checked that out. And the destruction it will cause. So even not just in Pembroke, but also in places like Mosta. It's proposed right next to the Dome, Valletta in the centre, Birkirkara, Hospiqua. They're all.
Plus, there's an argument to be made that if it's going to take 20 years to complete, by 20 years we might have other like self-driving cars technology, which might make it outdated.
20 years starting from the time of construction, right?
No, exactly. So it might be outdated by the point we might have other solutions.
It's only 30 years because let's be honest, the tunnel was proposed in the manifesto. The tunnel to Malta and Gozo was proposed 4 years ago, right? Yeah. Nothing has been done yet. It's still at the tendering phase, the legal challenges. So it's not 20 years. It's probably more like 30 years.
We'll see. It's it'll be also be interesting to know whether the brief given to the firm actually included maybe high-rise buildings in Pembroke. Yeah. Maybe they were told that this is an area that's been earmarked for this type of development. Yeah. We'll see. Yeah. On to our final story, the Nationalist Party has called for the immediate withdrawal of a PBS directive requiring producers of current affairs programs to seek the approval for their shows 2 weeks before they are aired. So yesterday it was revealed that the Public Broadcasting Service, through its CEO Mark Samout, had sent out the circular in which he basically told all producers that effective immediately they would need to inform PBS Head of News Norma Saliba about the topics that will be discussed on their programs as well as the guests that will be invited. The memo obviously created uproar online, with many sort of criticizing it and pointing out that the nature of current affairs programs is that sometimes they have to be organized from one day to the next. If something happens, you want to have a program about it, meaning that this new requirement is in many respects not even feasible. In a statement this morning, so the PN insisted that the new directive proves that what it has been saying for a long time. If you've been following, the PN has been very critical of the PBS, which it's accused of repeated impartiality. It said, the PBS was steamrolling over producers, journalists, and basically stifling the basic principles of democracy and of a free press. The PN said, that it essentially described this memo as unconstitutional, and it's also written to the Broadcasting Authority, asking it, to intervene and to ensure that this directive is no longer in place. What do you...
Well, no, what I think of it, I've been thinking about it over the past 24 hours, to be honest. It's really... What really gets to me is the fact that this is clearly like the only reason why this memo would be sent out in the first place, asking producers to tell them their topics and their guests in advance, means that PBS wants the right to refuse some requests. Yeah. That's the only reason, because otherwise there's no need for, like, why do you need to tell them who they're getting? Yeah. Now, why would they do that? Possibly some people are saying it's because it's to avoid the situation where the same person will be interviewed on the same time. So like last week, Bernard Grech was interviewed twice on the same day by Extra and Realta, and I suppose someone at PBS would think like it doesn't make sense. Like no one's going to watch 2 interviews of Bernard Grech right after each other, and so like we need to know. But if that's the case, it's okay, fine. It's a very, very small benefit to be gained, and a huge loss it's a small benefit to be gained from forcing producers to eliminate advance what they show. So on a very big loss, and that as a result. And the reason being is that you want to control what people are saying. And anyone who works in journalism would tell you that the worst thing possible is to have somebody telling you, trying to shut you up, trying to say, no, you gotta get this guest on, not this one, write it like this, or don't do it like that. And when it's PBS, which is owned by the state, the problem is that's the ultimate controller, right? So it's going to raise these questions, especially when you hear stories like Piazza Pardi. Don't forget that he said he had wanted to interview Simon Busuttil, and the amount of hassle that PBS management had caused him, calling him and threatening him, and until he just like refused to lay down. So these things happen, and let's not forget that PBS is crucial in Malta, because we don't have many TV stations. We have PBS, and then we have One and Net, which are owned by the political parties, and then there are this very small TV stations who are doing a very good job, to be honest, especially F Living, but they're small. There are only a few people who work there. So PBS is crucial. And even though we now have the internet and many other ways to get information, it remains important. It remains the
Many
primary.
people still view it,
Not just view it; they also get the news from there. And having the management just interfere and tell them what to do, and then the minister saying you shouldn't do it, or there's an outrage. That doesn't look good at all. And I really hope that this memo gets revoked. And I also really hope that the producers themselves criticize it. It's an insult to your dignity, right?
I totally agree.
Like if I want to interview someone, I have to tell PBS, who might then send it to the minister.
And who is PBS to say that you can interview Bergeret, for example, and I can't? Especially if something has happened that week where everyone wants to hear from a particular politician. Not to mention the fact that sometimes it's very easy. It's very difficult to fill slots because people don't want to come. So you take what you can get sometimes if you want to.
The easy way out will probably be for them to plan something that's a bit evergreen, right? So Sam had said it means we'll just do our episodes about street or whatever, but something that isn't news, because it's like, okay, now the metro's in the news. Imagine PBS can only discuss it 2 weeks from now. But then the budget will be in the news. It doesn't make sense at all, and it should be withdrawn.
So that's it from us. Thank you very much for following, and have an evening full of lovin'.